The International Civil Rights Center and Museum is proud to present Kwanzaa 2021. Habaragani. Habaragani in Swahili means, what's the word? That is the greeting traditionally for Kwanzaa. So I say to you, Habaragani. Kwanzaa is an African-American and Pan-African holiday which celebrates family, community, and culture. It was created in 1966 by Dr. Malana Karenga, a professor of African Studies in California. Kwanzaa, a 7-day cultural festival, begins today, December 26th, and ends January 1st. It joins communal values and practices of continental African and African American culture. The word Kwanzaa is a Swahili term and it means first fruits. Kwanzaa is a cultural holiday, not a religious holiday. So it is in addition to the holidays that are already being celebrated in this season. So if you are of another faith, you actually can partake in Kwanzaa in your home or by joining the celebrations that are going on throughout the city or in your community. There are aspects of Kwanzaa that reflect traditional and communal harvest celebrations of Africa. Celebrations are held in the home where people celebrate amongst family and are also held collectively throughout the community each night. The number 7 is significant and is highlighted with 7 days, 7 symbols, and 7 principles. Kwanzaa has 7 basic symbols, and this beautiful display, which is often found in the home, displays the 7 symbols. Each represents values and concepts reflective of African culture and contributive to community building, restoring the true state as communal people. The first symbol is the makeka, which is the mat. The mat is symbolic of the history and tradition of African American people and serves as a foundation on which we build. The second symbol, the mazao, the crops. These are symbolic of African harvest celebrations and of the rewards of productive and collective labor. The third symbol is the muhindi, which is the corn. It is symbolic of our children and our future, which they embody. So when you have a celebration in the home, if there are 2 children, you will have 2 ears of corn to represent the 2 children and the future for that family. The fourth symbol is the zawadi, which are the gifts. And the gifts are symbolic of education, hand craftsmanship. You give gifts mainly to the children, but you give gifts that are handmade, handcrafted, gifts that are symbolic of Africa, such as sculpture and art. We also have gifts that are educational and are great for learning about the culture and heritage. I'm holding here Great African Americans, Volume 2, and African American Wisdom, which are flashcards that can be purchased in International Civil Rights Center and Museum's gift shop. We have gifts like this for children, books, but we also have jewelry that was handmade in Africa. And so the zawadi, it is important that we not make it anything commercial. The fifth symbol is the kanara, which is the candle holder. And the candle holder has the mashuma saba, which are the candles. And each candle represents the ngoso saba, which are the principles that we highlight, acknowledge, and affirm each night by lighting a candle. We also have here the kikombe cha umoja, which is the unity cup. And this is a symbol of the foundational principle and practice of unity, which makes all things possible. Also, this cup is often used to pour libation in honor of our ancestors. That is part of our ceremony. I want to begin by talking about each principle, and I will light a candle for each principle. So the first principle is umoja, and that is when we say habara gani, and you say, what's the word? The answer would be umoja. And so on December 26th, we light the black candle. We start at the center. That represents unity, the first night of Kwanzaa. And then on December 27th, Kuchijakalia, self-determination, is the second principle, and we begin to light them from left to right. So the next candle we light for self-determination, to define and name ourselves, as well as create and speak for ourselves. The third night, on December 28th, the principle is Ujima, collective work and responsibility. To build and maintain community together, make our brothers and sisters' problems our problems, and to solve them together. The third candle is lit. We go to the right, lighting the green candle. And the word on the fourth day of Kwanzaa is the principle of Ujamaa, which means cooperative economics, to build and maintain our own stores, shops, and businesses, and to profit from them together. And we go from right to left, left to right. And on the fifth night, the candle that we light is Nia, purpose, to make our collective vocation the building and developing of our community, to restore our people to their traditional greatness. And on December 31st, we light the candle of Kaumba, which is creativity in Swahili, to do as much as we can in the way we can in order to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than when we inherited it. On December 31st, that's the day of the feast, and there's lots of drumming and dancing and activities for children and the entire family to enjoy together. Our final candle that we will light is Imani, faith. And to believe with all our hearts in our people, our parents, our teachers, our leaders, and the righteous victory of our struggle. And as you see this beautiful display, you understand that the festive colors symbolize something. Black is for the people, red is for their struggle, and green is for the future they will get to live as a result of that struggle. So the first principle is umoja. And in Swahili, that is the word for unity, to strive for and maintain unity in the family, community, nation, and race. Our first presenter for Kwanzaa 2021 is Bree Newsome-Bass. She is an artist, activist, and public speaker. She is an organizer in the modern civil rights movement and has helped develop several nonprofit and grassroots organizations. In 2015, she attracted national attention when she scaled a flagpole at South Carolina's Capitol building to remove the Confederate battle flag in protest of systemic racism following the racially motivated murders at Emanuel AME in Charleston, South Carolina. Her artistic work includes written, film, and performance pieces. She is the recipient of the NAACP Image Award, among other honors. The International Civil Rights Center and Museum is proud to present Bree Newsome-Bass. Umoja.
On the first night of Kwanzaa, we light the black candle at the center of the Kinara. This candle represents the principle of umoja, which means unity. The umoja candle is placed between the red and green candles and burns for all 7 nights of the celebration. This reminds us that umoja, the principle of unity, is what holds everything together and makes it possible for us to act according to the 6 important principles represented by the other candles. In order to exercise self-determination, engage in collective work and responsibility, practice cooperative economics, operate in our God-given purpose and creativity, and stand strongly in our faith, we must first have unity. Unity exists on multiple levels. As individuals, we must achieve unity and alignment within our minds, bodies, and spirits so that we can show up as whole people in our communities. We must strive for unity within our families, healing and strengthening the bonds between spouses and partners, parents and children, siblings, aunts, cousins, uncles, and friends. We need unity in our communities, a unity that is built around the understanding that none of us can survive or thrive totally on our own. One of the outcomes of this pandemic period is that it has shown just how interconnected human society is. In a very short time, a virus spread around the world to every region and every society, passing through human contact. In our daily lives, it may not feel like we are connected to every other person on the planet, but in reality, we are. We are seeing firsthand that a virus of this kind cannot be defeated without cooperation and unified action. Everything from the choices we make as individuals to the level of coordination among nations will determine whether or not we can stop the spread of this virus. This is also true of other things that still plague our society: racism, poverty, violence, injustice. We can only defeat these things through cooperation, unified action, and coordination. The unity candle is Black because we are Black. We are not all the same skin tone, of course. We come in a beautiful range of hues, textures, and features. We are spread across the world, speaking many languages and representing many nations, ethnicities, and cultures. But what unites us is our Blackness. It is our political awareness of ourselves as Black people living in a world contoured and shaped by the anti-Black racism that was instituted through colonization. It is our historical awareness of ourselves as people of African descent, as children of diaspora, and the inheritors of a multi-generational fight against enslavement and colonization. Our awareness is what makes us so powerful. That's why this kind of awareness is constantly under attack. People who are desperate to preserve a dying world order of racial oppression fear this kind of awareness because it is precisely this kind of awareness that leads to freedom. Not only freedom for ourselves as Black people, but for the whole of humanity. All of humanity began in Africa. And for all of humanity to be conscious of this history, to become aware of what it means to be human, to understand that we each exist in what Martin Luther King Jr. called a single garment of destiny with other humans. This kind of awareness marks the collapse of racial oppression and hatred. Like blowing trumpets on the 7th day at the walls of Jericho, the system of lies and violence that have been constructed to keep us down crumbles under the weight of spiritual truth. It's important to distinguish unity from uniformity. Uniformity means that everyone is the same, but we are not all the same, and we've never all been the same. Our ancestors came from diverse tribes, nations, ethnic groups, languages, religions, and cultural practices. The people who colonized and enslaved them attempted to break them down, destroy their diverse identities, and force them to become something new, something other than human, an invention that only existed in service to white supremacy. We resist white supremacy by reclaiming our humanity and our diversity as Black people, celebrating the nuances and differences across regions, subcultures, families, and faith traditions. Unity means that all Black lives matter, and that we reclaim our humanity by honoring the humanity of others. In generations past, our ancestors were outlawed from speaking in their native tongues or communicating with drums. They were threatened with death if they learned to read or write. But our ancestors resisted. They took what was left and created new ways to communicate and to record our histories so they weren't forgotten. For so long, our history was passed along through stories or documented in designs on quilts, remembered in songs, or written in the front pages of Bibles. Through all of it, we never forgot who we were or how we got here. Today, we have modern oppressors who want to erase our histories from the school books and in the public square. But like our ancestors, we must persist in telling our stories. When we light the unity candle this Kwanzaa season, we should do it in remembrance of all the many people, known and unknown, whose persistence in the past made possible our existence today. It's amazing how much light is produced from a single candle in a dark room. That is how knowledge, wisdom, and truth operate in this world. A single flame casts away the darkness. This pandemic period is a time of revelation, like a bright light shining on the world that exposes everything as it is, both good and bad. People have described these times as unprecedented, but there's little about this era that is unprecedented for us as Black people. This is not the first time we've seen our constitutional rights stripped away. It's not the first time we've had to confront authoritarianism or efforts to establish apartheid systems in America or a swell in police violence. This is not the first time the government has failed to protect us from something, and it has fallen on everyday people to save lives and protect human rights. No, the pandemic has only exposed what has always been there, what has always been true, what has always been happening. The only question is, what do we do when we know what we know? People often ask me how I had the courage to climb the flagpole at South Carolina's Capitol in 2015 and remove the Confederate flag, or how I remain hopeful in the face of everything that's happening now. For me, it is the recognition that I'm hardly among the first to struggle against injustice and oppression that gives me the courage to do what I do. It's understanding that I'm part of something so much greater than myself. I am part of a universal struggle for freedom and democracy that began long before I got here. It's a struggle that may continue after I'm gone, but I know that I am here because of this struggle and that I have a duty to carry it forward. I think that for all the difficulties we've been through in the past year or so, it is forcing us in many ways to re-examine what matters most in life. We live in a society that is often preoccupied with productivity and measuring our self-worth based on how much we can produce in a given hour or a given day. One of the impacts of living through a period of high stress like this is that it's reminding us of the importance of rest, of allowing ourselves to be human with human limitations, and that relying on each other is exactly what makes it all possible, and not just the efforts of a single individual. Sometimes the obstacles we face seem insurmountable, but I urge everyone to examine what they can do, where they are, with what they have, remembering always that a successful movement is made up of many people doing many things in many places, all in furtherance of the same goal. That is how we made it this far, and that is what will carry us to victory in the end. I think the unity candle is the perfect metaphor for a movement. A candle is made of many particles of wax that have been molded together around a wick, just as a movement is made of many people united around a purpose. And the flame that burns is like the light we all carry forward, generation to generation. I wish everyone a happy Kwanzaa.